Hello and welcome back to the channel. This week we are working on grading this whole area with the skid steer that we had rented, and we're taking all of this pit run or gravel and putting it over into the hole in front of the Connex, because that's where we're building the lean-to slash pole barn garage thing. It's going to come off of the Connex, so we need to put a lot of gravel in that area, and thankfully we have a lot over here. So we're just bringing this down to grade and using all of this gravel. We've already gotten a lot moved, but we need to move the sawmill today, which of course we're going to use the skid steer for because that thing is very heavy. So we're going to move the sawmill over by the Connex because once that building is built, the sawmill is actually going to be going underneath it, and we intend to put in a small slab for it, but we're just trying to get it close to where it's going to go, and that way it's also out of the way because it's right behind the camera right now, and that's where we need to take the gravel from. And we're saving all of the clay that's in the soil as well, so when we go to build the new rocket mass heater, we will have plenty of clay for it. And we want to dig a root cellar. We are thinking we're going to use tires as the wall, use tires. Then on the inside, I plan to cover all of the walls with the cob. So we just want to make sure we have enough clay that's fairly accessible to use for all of those projects. Nice big old mosquito. So to make our lives easier, we have to move the outhouse, which we knew we were gonna have to move the outhouse. We just didn't consider kind of like the order of events. So we have to move the outhouse now. We're just gonna move it like straight back, so it's not in the way of the garage or the lean-to that we're building. And it should work fine, even if we end up having to move it later in the future once the house is built and we wanna move it kind of like further away, then we can do that. But while we are still living in this house, we didn't want to put it in its like final spot that we think we want it to be in. But until that next house is built, we didn't want to move this super far away because we want to be able to get to it quickly during winter while we are still in our tiny house. And we'd have to clear some trees where we think we'd want its final resting place to be. So we're just going to scooch it straight back essentially and call it good. So it's not in the way anymore and we can continue grading.
Ooh, yeah, just go straight forward. 2 inches, 1 inch, a little more, a little more. Yep, yep. Back up a little bit. Yep. Forward a little bit. Yeah, perfect.
Laughing now.
Not me. I was going to get a ladder for you.
As you can see, the outhouse move was successful. However, it's clearly very tall. I'm 5'9" for reference, but there is gravel being added to this section and we have stuff for stairs. So until the gravel is done and we get the stairs in, it's gonna be a bit of a climb to get into the outhouse, but we are just happy that we were able to get it moved and we didn't crush it in the process. And back on this side where we've been pulling the gravel from, we're coming in from the opposite direction because the hole we've been digging it out of, we've made a little bit lower than the grade that we want. So we're gonna start coming in from the opposite direction and kind of meet in the middle and get that all smoothed out. First, we have to get rid of the top layer that's here, which is mostly clay and a little bit of topsoil. And of course, we're saving that clay. We'd rather have way too much than not have enough and have to dig it out. So Trevor's gonna do that first before we start digging into the gravel again. So the pad for the carport slash pole barn we are going to build is done. We are very happy with how it turned out. So next up is just going to be marking where all of the concrete blocks are going to go. And then we can pour the concrete into the forms that we're going to make and then start the whole building process. Thankfully, we also got the stairs to the outhouse done, which is really nice because I was falling out of the outhouse almost every single time I went in it. So it's no longer a hazard. Now, this is the area that we got all of that gravel from, and Trevor is working up on finishing the grading. So far, we're really happy with it. It's turned out far flatter than we were expecting, which is great. So the pad is done, this area is done, and now we are working on pulling up some topsoil in another area. So all of this topsoil and clay needs to get out of here because this is also going to be a part of the yard for the house. So we want to get this cleaned up this year while we have the skid steer and still have plenty of hours left on it. So when the time comes to actually get started on the house, this will be ready and we won't have to worry about using any new rental for this area. We will likely have to bring in gravel for this particular area and for the area surrounding the house, but we still have a bunch of hours left on this skid steer, so we're just going to use it as much as we can and get our money's worth for the hours that we paid for. Okay, that is it for this week's video. As you might be able to hear, we are still running the skid steer. Trevor's getting that last area of topsoil all scraped up, and then we are also going to be using some extra gravel on our driveway. But next week, we are hoping to get the foundation in for the lean-to, and ideally start the building process as well. We have most of the posts that we need, but we are going to have to source a few more from the property, and then we also need to go to Home Depot to get the remaining lumber that we need. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.